Sorry, I'm Alex Hilton, editor of Labourhome, speaking with David Davis.
Morning, Alex.
Now, you're the independent candidate for Hilton Price.
No, I'm the Conservative candidate.
You're the Conservative Party candidate, and if you win,
I'll be back as a Conservative. Yeah.
You'll take the Conservative whip. So, why should a Labour activist or generally a Labour supporter support you?
Well, I said when I made my resignation statement on the steps of the House that I was not going to fight on the general Labour record. I was not going to fight on my record, actually, because I'm an irrelevance to this in a way. I'm just the cipher. I was going to fight on the issue simply of the erosion of our freedoms. The starkest example is 42 days. The fact that we are now proposing to lock people up for 6 weeks without charge, and understand a significant number of those people will be innocent. Half the people we've locked up for 28 days have been innocent, and the longer you go, the more there will be innocent. So it's a very, very serious problem. So that's the line in the sand, but it isn't the only issue. The other issues that relate to that are things like the DNA database. You've got 1 million innocent people on that, and I can tell you why, how I think we can change that if you like. CCTV cameras, one for every 14 people, sort of snooper state. People say it's used for cutting crime. Actually, it's only significantly 3% of crimes, because 80% are not evidential standard. But there are not proper protections for people's privacy on it. Right down to local governments carrying out 1,000 surveillance operations a week on everything from your bins to where you go to school. So the whole series of things, many of which have an acute resonance. I know with Labour members of Parliament, because they told me so. I was talking to one just now, about half an hour ago. But across the political spectrum, Labour, Liberal, and actually unaligned people.
You put a lot of this in a historical context, one that's quite welcome. But what is the difference between 28 days and 42 days? Where is the line?
2 weeks for a start.
Well, where's the line? Would 29 days be acceptable? What's the point?
No, understand. When I think 28 days is plenty, to be frank.
So you would have done exactly the same thing if it were a 29 day?
No, yes. I mean, I certainly would have stopped any erosion further, yes. Let me explain why. Firstly, because every day counts. Every minute counts if you're locked up. Secondly, because the Director of Public Prosecution said that they are comfortable is the word he used, with the current circumstances, and they make the decisions on charging, and that he did not foresee it being necessary in future. But thirdly, because of the way this came about, your viewers will remember the 90-day debate where I took the stand then against that, which we won. In that, we allowed the government to go from 14 to 28 days. We allowed that move. And I did that because I was told there was real pressure at the 14-day point, the Diran Barrott trial and so on. They really just got it out in time. But the two people who were charged at 27, 28 days in the Heathrow plot, the evidence for them was available at day 4 and day 12. Not day 27, not day 28, day 4 and day 12. And they weren't charged on complicated, decrypted stuff or international intelligence or anything like that. They were charged on the basis of witness statements, text records in their phones. Very straightforward, simple, conventional policing. So I'm afraid the story we've been given by the government is simply untrue.
Now, is there a clear difference in the understanding of what civil liberties mean from the Labour and a Conservative perspective? My perspective is my father was a printer, and a lot of Labour people have got backgrounds with poll tax.
My stepfather was a printer.
Poll tax, right?
He's the father of the chapel, actually.
Actually, so my dad was father of chapel at the Sporting Life, I think.
All right, okay.
My mother was arrested for beating up 6 police officers that she didn't do, but that was the state choosing to infringe upon her civil liberties, and she got off. There were agents provocateurs provided by the state at the miners' dispute. People remember the poll tax riots, and they see a very different flavour of government in those days to what we have now. So despite the fact that how would you say...
Listen, I'm a legislator, or at least up until half an hour ago I was a legislator. I'm about creating the law that is supposed to restrain the power of the state. It gives the state its power, but it's also supposed to restrain the power of the state. Mm-hmm. Now, people get arrested for things they haven't done. Mm-hmm. And that's why there's a limit of a few days for non-terrorist offences. That's one of the reasons that's there. Habeas corpus I'll be going about Magna Carta. The point about habeas corpus was not that nobody could be arrested. It was that nobody could be arrested without reason, and that they should know that reason. Anybody of your viewers who's read The Trial by Kafka, the great agonising, maddening aspect of that, is almost driving him to insanity in the novel, is he doesn't know what he's charged with, and it's very fundamental. Now, I'm not saying here that I can cure the evils of the world and limit all the powers of that. I'm a limited state man. Which I would disagree with many of your colleagues on. But what you can do is you can actually put in place checks and balances in the law to prevent some of this.
But isn't the Tory statism just a different flavour of statism? For example, Boris Johnson very rapidly banned drinking on the tube.
Well, I have to say, I don't think drinking on the tube is a civil right. I really don't. And there are some very fundamental freedoms. There has been some sort of rights inflation over the years, but there are some very fundamental freedoms which are absolutely core to our society. Gordon Brown, since it's important, it's a Labour site to talk about that. Gordon Brown has talked about the Britishness. Now, some of it made my skin crawl, to be honest. All this stuff about British jobs, British workers, and so on, I thought was disgraceful. But he's trying to sort of feel his way towards what Britishness is about. What Britishness, if there is such a thing, is about is freedom. It's about the rights of the individual versus the state in a way, and drawing that boundary so that the state doesn't own my identity. The state can't do things to me without very, very good reason. And I find it as annoying as anybody else amongst your viewers or your members, to see somebody locked up for reading out the names of the people who died in the Gulf War at the Cenotaph. I may not agree with her politics, but it's Voltaire, isn't it? I disagree with what you say, but I'd fight to the death for your right to say it. And it's that sort of fundamental freedom that's at the core of British society.
Now, I've been a councillor on a Conservative authority, and my experience of CCTV is that local authorities implement CCTV when local communities demand it. So what would you say to those communities?
Okay, let's see how it actually works. So at the moment, 80% of CCTV is non-usable in court. It's not an evidential standard. Now, I think that's ridiculous. You have a CCTV camera that can invade your privacy but can't protect you. It's an extraordinary thing to do. So if you're going to have CCTV cameras, firstly, they should be usable in court. So you do actually get some degree of protection. At the moment, 3% of prosecutions and convictions are brought on the basis of CCTV evidence. If we made them all usable, it would be 15%. So you get 5 times the protection. On the other hand, we don't have enough protection from the misuse of that data. I would have a mandatory sentence against anybody who misused that data for either commercial or salacious purposes or whatever. So that, there's becoming a bit of a trade, I'm afraid, in CCTV footage. And I just think that's entirely wrong, and that is an erosion of our privacy for very little reason.
Now, I've just got a couple more questions.
Yeah, we're just running out of time, so be quick. Yeah.
All right, so why should Labour put a candidate against you? Your party didn't... Your party hasn't made this an issue of principle, no, otherwise you'd all be resigning.
No, I had. Actually, some of them said, should we resign too? And I said, no, there's only need for one sacrifice. But the simple truth is that Gordon Brown, and before him Tony Blair to some extent, but Gordon Brown in particular now, is now the architect of all this. He's the overseer of this change in our society. And if he believes... one of the problems I have is that at the moment the polls tell me that 42 Days, or last week or week before, they told me that 42 Days had 69% support. That was one of the polls. Gordon Brown is likely to take this to the House of Commons, the House of Lords. It will be thrown out. It'll come back to the House of Commons, and in 10 months' time, he can Parliament act it. Now, if he does that, I think that will be an abuse of process, because the vote last week had no parliamentary authority in any normal moral sense of the word. So if he wants to defend that, and the other measures, and DNA databases, CCTV and so on, all of which he's very proud of it would seem, then he should put somebody up against me, and on the basis of the opinion polls, on those numbers, he should at least be able to dent my majority, if not defeat me. But what we would have is the debate and the argument about something fundamental to Britain. If he doesn't do it, I'm afraid the public at large will come to the conclusion that he's running away from the fight.
So, last question. Does that mean that you're asking the Prime Minister to put up a Labour candidate against you, and that you're asking my viewers, my readers, to support you against the Labour candidate?
I'm asking everybody, and we've had support from Tories, of course, liberal activists, people who've written saying I've voted Labour all my life, and most interestingly of all, people who said I've never taken an interest in politics before in my life, but this has galvanised my interest. I want to make the judgment. What is their view on the debate? What is their view on the subject? I've cast it quite narrow, quite deliberately. What's their view on the debate, and vote on the basis of their view on the debate. If they think I lose the argument in 42 days, if they think I'm wrong about CCTV cameras or an unnecessary million people on the DNA database, then they should vote against me. That's the point of an election.
So have you got something to offer for? I mean, have you reviewed your views on Section 28 or homosexual age of consent?
This is, forgive me, but that's trying to change the subject. This is fundamental to this, and what Labour will do throughout this, what the Labour machine will do. I'm sorry, I don't view you as the Labour machine, but what the
Labour machine doesn't review me.
No, but what the Labour machine will try and do is change the subject. For example, there was an attack on my voting record on gay rights in the last couple of days. It provoked on Ian Dale's blog. I really recommend some of your people to go and look at Ian Dale's blog about that attack on me and my real attitude to gays.
Did you cry? Did you cry at Ian's wedding?
Grit in my eye, I think. Grit in my eye. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Take care.